You did not fall back in because he said a beautiful sentence. You fell back in because, for a few minutes, he stopped sounding careless. He finally named something close enough to what hurt you. He said he knew he had been unfair. His tone changed, and for once he did not defend himself. So you softened before anything had actually changed. You remember where you were when you read it or heard it. Your chest loosened. The tension in your face eased. For the first time in days, you were not building an argument in your head. You were not preparing to explain your pain again. You were thinking, maybe he finally understands. And that was the trap, not the apology by itself. The relief after it. Because relief can feel like proof when you have been starving for him to see you clearly. One honest-sounding sentence can make you forget the part that matters most. After the apology, he still had to act differently. But you moved first. You stopped talking about what still hurt because holding him accountable suddenly felt cruel. He had apologized, and now you felt like the difficult one for not feeling better yet. That is where you got pulled back in. He did not have to become steady yet. He only had to sound aware. And once he sounded aware, you started protecting that soft moment instead of watching what he did the next day. The first truth you avoided was simple and uncomfortable. An apology can feel close to accountability while still leaving you in the same place. He sounded different for one night. Your life with him stayed the same. You told yourself he apologized because he was learning. Not because that was proven. Because you needed a way to hold the pain and the connection at the same time. There was a part of you that remembered the better moments. The times he seemed embarrassed by what he had done. The times he looked at you like he knew he had crossed a line. The times he said, "I know," and for once, did not argue with every word you said. So when he came back with regret in his voice, you gave that regret a story. Maybe he was not good with emotions. Maybe he needed time to understand the damage. And a man who could admit he hurt you seemed closer to changing than a man who denied everything. That explanation felt reasonable. It did not sound foolish. It sounded mature. It allowed you to stay without feeling like you were ignoring yourself. But look at the moment when you used it. After he apologized, you expected one small difference. Maybe he would not disappear the next time you brought up a problem. Maybe he would not turn cold when the conversation became uncomfortable. Maybe he would remember your pain after the emotional moment had passed. Instead, you felt the same tightness come back. You noticed the same coldness returning. But now you had his apology sitting beside it. So you protected him with the words he had already given you. You told yourself he understood now, even while the same behavior was returning. And because that explanation sounded kind, you used his apology to doubt what you were seeing again. It allowed you to accept a strange arrangement. He could hurt you, apologize, and you would start treating him like a man who had changed before he returned to the behavior that made the apology necessary. You were not forgiving repair. You were forgiving a moment that sounded like repair. The part that kept you there was not only that you believed him, it was what believing him spared you from deciding. When he apologized, you did not have to decide what his behavior meant yet. You could tell yourself this was one more difficult moment, not the pattern your life had slowly become. That is why the apology had so much power. It gave you a softer explanation for staying inside something that still hurt. Instead of admitting that his behavior had become a regular part of your life, you could tell yourself you were standing beside a man who was trying to grow. But look at what happened after the words settled. You read his apology before work and carried it with you all morning. Every time your phone lit up, You checked whether the softness was still there. You answered people, finished what you had to do, and kept wondering whether he would become cold again by the end of the day. You were living inside a question he created, and you kept treating it like your responsibility to solve. The apology did not only pull you back toward him, it pulled you away from your own ability to trust what had already happened. Each time he sounded sorry, you felt you had to give the relationship one more chance to prove what it had already failed to prove. Suddenly, what had hurt you no longer felt like enough reason to leave. The behavior that had exhausted you became something you had to keep observing before you felt allowed to call it a pattern. And that kept you stuck in the most draining position, not leaving, not resting, not fully believing him, not fully believing yourself. His apology gave you just enough relief to postpone the decision his behavior had already placed in front of you. There was a reason the apology reached you so quickly. For a moment, his regret made it easier to believe the hurt was not the whole story. You could separate him from what he had done and believe the man who hurt you was not the man he really wanted to be. That can confuse a woman who has been trying to make sense of someone for too long, because maybe his regret was real. Maybe he did hate seeing you hurt. Maybe he did feel guilty when he looked back at what he had done. Maybe there were moments when he meant every word he said, and he wanted to be better than the way he had been acting. You do not have to call every apology fake in order to stop being pulled under by it. And admitting that can help you stop calling yourself foolish for believing him. You heard guilt in his voice. You saw that he was not proud of what he had done. And because you still loved him, you wanted that discomfort in him to become a reason for him to change. That made sense. Something can be real and still not change the way you are being treated. He may have meant the apology. He may also have returned to the same behavior because feeling sorry was easier than changing. Regret is not the same as answering differently when you bring up the pain again. Guilt is not the same as staying present when the conversation becomes uncomfortable. A soft voice is not the same as remembering your pain after the emotional moment has passed. This is the place where you have to stop punishing yourself for believing him, without giving the apology more power than it earned. You were responding to the part of him that finally seemed to understand. But your life was being shaped by what he kept doing after the apology was over. The next pull will probably come in a quiet moment. Not when you feel strong, not when you have everything sorted out. It may come after another apology, or after he says the right thing with that tired softness that makes you want to stop defending your own memory. Your old response will be ready. You will want to answer quickly, ease the tension, show him you are not cold, and let the apology open the door again. You may feel that old pressure to reward him for sounding sorry, as if waiting for changed behavior would make you unfair. This time, you can respond differently in one small way. You do not have to argue with the apology or turn the moment into a trial. You can hear him without rushing to forgive. You could say, "I hear you. I need to see what changes after this." You may feel cruel for not making the moment easier. You may want to reassure him, forgive quickly, and prove that you are not punishing him. But every time you rush to remove his discomfort, you were left alone with yours. This is where the old pattern starts to weaken. You are not refusing his apology. You are refusing to let the apology do the work that only behavior can do. Do not look only at how sincere he sounds when he apologizes. Watch what happens when he is frustrated, when you say no, when you bring up the problem again, and when changing requires something from him. He may not like the pause. You may not like it either. Part of you may want the relief back immediately, even if it is the kind of relief that disappears as soon as the same behavior returns. Let that discomfort be there without obeying it. For once, the apology does not get to reset the whole story. The apology can sit there. His next choices can answer. And you do not have to carry the burden of turning one sorry moment into proof that it is safe to begin again. You no longer have to decide whether his apology was sincere. You only have to notice whether life with him actually becomes different.